Well, I came to Hollywood and arrived here in August 1923 with $40 in my pocket and a coat and a pair of trousers that didn't match. And one half of my suitcase had my shirts and underwear and things. The other half had my drawing materials. It was a cardboard suitcase at that.
We don't think of you in terms of the silent picture era. What did you do when you finally got out here?
Well, I tried to get a job doing anything I could in the studio so I could learn. I was a little discouraged with the cartoon at that time. I felt at that time that I was getting into it too late. In other words, I thought the cartoon business was established in such a way that there's no chance to break into it. So I tried to get a job in Hollywood, working in the picture business so I could learn it. I would have liked to have been a director or any part of that. And there was nothing open, so before I knew it, I had my drawing board out and I started back at the cartoon. And I was able to secure a contract for 12 of these short films. And I did all the drawing myself. I had no help at all. I was all alone, but I made the first 6 practically alone. Then at that time, I was able to get some of the boys that had been with me in Kansas City to come out. So from the 7th on, I had some help, and I got by the first year, and they were fairly successful, and that led to other things. And with some of the boys I'd worked with in Kansas City, augmenting the setup, I was able to eventually build an organization, and it reached a point that I had so many working with me, and there's so much time and attention demanded that I had to drop the drawing end of it myself. But I've never regretted it because drawing was always a means to an end with me. And so through these other boys who were good draftsmen and artists in many different phases of the business, very talented people, coordinating their talents is what has built this business. And if I hadn't dropped the drawing end of it myself, I don't think I'd have built this organization.
When did you establish your own company? What year would that have been?
1923. My brother was here, and in effect, the government helped subsidize us, and I'll explain that to you. My brother was a veteran of the First World War, and he had been hospitalized and things, and so he was receiving a certain disability compensation. It amounted to about $85 a month, and we lived on that while we established the studio. And from that time on, my brother Roy and I have been together in this business. And until the year 1940, we didn't have a stockholder.
When was Mickey Mouse born?
Mickey Mouse came about in 1928.
With sound, I presume. Hmm?
Well, no, the first Mickey Mouse was made silent, and while we were making the first Mickey Mouse, sound came. So we decided that there's no sense in making anything more silent, and we immediately switched to sound, and we didn't have any sound equipment or anything else, but we went ahead and made them for sound, and we eventually got sound on them, and of course, it, I think, played the big part in establishing Mickey Mouse.
Where did the idea for Mickey come from?
Well, it came about through a situation that I was contracting with a middleman for my films, and they were being released through Universal. And he was a rather unscrupulous character, and he thought he could cut in and move in a little better, and I pulled away from him, and I was left alone, and he happened to own the character. He had a right to the character. So that was one of the big lessons I learned. And from then on, I said, there's no middleman. He contributed nothing. We did everything. So I had to get a new character. And I'd been doing a rabbit. It was called Oswald the Rabbit. I did and started for him. So I had to have a new character. And I was coming back after this meeting in New York, and Mrs. Disney was with me, and it was on the train in those days, you know, and there's over 3 days from New York. And I said, we got to get a new character, and I'd always, I'd fool around a lot with little mice, and they were always cute characters, and they hadn't been overdone in the picture field. They'd been used but never featured. So I decided it would be with a mouse, because at that time I didn't have Mickey as more or less a normal scale human being. I had him as a scaled mouse with overscaled props. And yeah, that's how it came about. It's kind of like, and then the name came, what would you call him, and the euphony there of Mickey Mouse. And I had a Mortimer first, and my wife shook her head, and then I tried Mickey, and she nodded the other way, and that was it.
Is it true that you did the voice for Mickey yourself in the early days?
Oh, yeah, I still do it.
I was going to ask you if you could, and you still can.
Well, it's just the falsetto, and we were fooling around and trying to get a voice for a mouse, and nobody knew what a mouse would sound like, so I said, well, it's kind of like this. And the guy said, well, why don't you do it? And I knew I'd always be on the payroll, so I did it.
When was Donald Duck born?
Well, Donald came about 4 or 5 years after Mickey Mouse, and I heard the voice on the radio. It was almost an amateur program, and this boy was imitating animals and things and birds, and he had